The conflict in Sudan has created a serious humanitarian emergency in neighbouring South Sudan. About 300,000 people have crossed the border to escape the fighting, and there are not enough resources to accommodate them. Most of the refugees are South Sudanese citizens who have been living in Sudan, and they are returning to a country that is already experiencing serious challenges. South Sudan is one of the world's poorest countries, and since it gained independence from Sudan in 2011, it has been fragile. It's had its own violent conflicts and has been severely impacted by climate change, long droughts and devastating floods. The UN agencies on the ground say there is not enough food, and the refugees who've recently arrived are going hungry, some families going days without meals.
When we ran from Khartoum, we left everything behind, and now we are suffering here. Especially because of the rain and the health of my child. I can't do anything else because he needs constant care.
Since I've been here, I have seen the condition of people deteriorating rapidly, those that are coming across the border as the conflict continues. Really, to see a malnourished child in a mother's arms, not knowing whether that child is actually going to survive the night or not is incredibly confronting.
I am now joined by South Sudan's Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Albino Akol Atak. He is in Juba. Welcome to DW News Africa, Minister. Humanitarian agencies have issued dire warnings about the situation in South Sudan because of all the refugees who've recently arrived there. The World Food Programme says a hunger emergency is looming. I would like to hear it from you, Minister. How desperate is the situation you are facing?
I agree with you that the situation in South Sudan in terms of humanitarian is really dire. Is dire to the sense that hunger is yes looming because of the crisis that we are now going through. Before the crisis in Sudan, where a lot of people were forced to flee Sudan to come to South Sudan, we had been dealing with the impact of climate change, which caused a lot of flooding for the last 4 consecutive years, which displaced more than 2 million people within and outside the country. With the crisis in Sudan, which now a huge influx of returnees and refugees. When these people moved, they moved with almost nothing, and they come to South Sudan very vulnerable. Now the situation in South Sudan, as the government of South Sudan have opened the borders to receive everybody who is fleeing the war in Sudan, is now getting worsening because of the arrival of more than 300,000 returnees and refugees as a conflict in Sudan.
Minister, I'd like to come in over there. You're currently in the rainy season. Could you tell us a little bit about how that is making things worse for the refugees?
That is true. This is one of the elements now which is actually contributing in worsening the situation, which is already deteriorated. With the arrival of these people on the borders, now this rainy season, which has already started and has already affected some of these areas where we put up these returnees and refugees, the situation now is very, very worse because we put them up in what we call transit sites where we will come and take them to their final destination. And while they are waiting there, now rainy season have affected them very much because even the setup of housing or sheltering is not to that extent that will actually protect them from the rainy season, leave alone the issue of flooding. Like, for instance, in one of the areas that we received these people from Sudan, which is Rang, now is even under flooding. And the spaces where these people are is very, very now narrowing because of this flooding, which adds another complication to the situation which has already been complicated. So we are now dealing with the provision of food for these refugees and returnees, and sheltering and medicines, plus transportation, and to protect them from this flooding and the rainy season. So
Minister, how would you like to see the international community come to your help at this time?
First, to support our partners that are actually already engaging on this process, because now, jointly together with our partners, mainly the UN agencies and other international agencies, are now working together to respond to the crisis. Some of them are supporting them in provision of food, provision of shelter, even in transportation. All of us, we are involved. So we are now facing a severe impact of the weather extreme, which is the climate change in terms of flood, and some areas drought. So we want to, build or strengthen the capacity resilience of our people in the long term. And you can see this conflict is continuous, and we don't know when shall it end. And as such, we cannot predict the stop of the flow of these people. So now we are expecting from here up to the end of the year, more than 500,000 people would have come. Of course, if we don't intervene on time, this emergency would turn out to be a continuous severe humanitarian crisis that will even turn to be another issue like, of course, issues of insecurity, which will affect the whole region. And it is not only South Sudan. Of course, we are not in isolation. Whatever affects us in South Sudan will definitely affect the region. This is how we look at it. And of course, we send our voices to the international community on that basis.
South Sudan's Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Albino Akol Atak, we appreciate your time here on DW News Africa. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity.